We're learning more about new tension between Donald Trump and a handful of Senate Republicans who defied him. A source tells MS Now Trump called up all 5 of these Republican senators who voted with Democrats on Thursday to restrict the president from taking further military action in Venezuela. And he berated, quote, more than one of them. Trump also blasted them online, saying they, quote, should never be elected to office again. Still, the final vote on war powers is unlikely to pass the House. And even if it did, Trump would almost certainly veto it.
Hey, folks. Welcome back. Adam is here. So what is happening right now? The Republican Party is cracking apart in broad daylight. Not in whispered leaks or anonymous sources, but with names attached and votes being counted. The senators Trump believed would protect him until the end are the ones holding the scissors. The fortress of loyalty he spent years building turns out to have been made of paper the whole time. And he's watching it collapse while he's still sitting in the Oval Office.
5 Republican senators joined with Democrats Thursday in trying to limit what President Donald Trump can do next in Venezuela. The resolution advanced on a vote of 52 to 47.
I love the president. I support the president. When it comes to the conflict in Venezuela, my read of the Constitution is if the president feels the need to put troops on the ground in Venezuela in the future, I think Congress would need to vote on that.
Missouri Republican Senator Josh Hawley telling Spectrum News why he backed the resolution. After the vote, Trump name-checked Hawley and the other 4 Republicans in a social media post, saying they, quote, should never be elected to office again.
Major Republican voices in the Senate have stopped pretending. McConnell, Collins, Murkowski, names that carry enormous weight inside the GOP machinery, have all indicated they are prepared to vote for conviction in an impeachment trial. We are not talking about vague signals or careful statements designed to leave room for maneuvering. We are talking about public declarations that leave no doubt about where they stand.
Also today, our next guest, Democratic Senator Ed Markey of Massachusetts, who has voted twice to stop Donald Trump's illegal war in Iran, said, quote, "We have a warmonger in the White House. He has threatened war crimes on an apocalyptic scale and appears eager to commit them. The House and Senate must return to session. The House must pass articles of impeachment, and then the Senate must vote to convict and remove the president, or the cabinet and vice president, with congressional concurrence, must invoke the 25th Amendment and remove Trump. His threats cannot be dismissed as mere rhetoric. This is as grave a moment as the world has faced in the nuclear era."
12 Republican senators have already shown their hand, and the math is terrifying for Trump because they only need 17 to remove him from office. 17 votes. That means the most powerful man in the country is maybe 5 defections away from being thrown out by the people who were supposed to be his allies. Think about how insane that sounds. The man won the election. He took the oath of office. He walked back into the White House with a Republican majority behind him, and now those same Republicans are orchestrating what amounts to a political coup against their own president.
The president's behavior was shameful and wrong. His personal interests do not take precedence over those of this great nation. The president has the responsibility to uphold the integrity and the honor of the office, not just for himself, but for all future presidents. Degrading the office by actions or even name-calling weakens it for future presidents, and it weakens our country.
It feels like watching a tower collapse in slow motion, except every single brick is labeled betrayal and survival instinct. But here is the part that makes this even more twisted. The GOP is not abandoning Trump because they suddenly found religion on constitutional principles. Nobody woke up one morning and decided to become a profile in courage. They are doing it because Trump has become toxic in ways that threaten their own existence. The Republican brand is bleeding out, and the senators can see the polling data as clearly as anyone else. Working-class Trump voters, the very people who powered his return to the White House, are walking away from the party at a rate of 20%. Let that number sink in for a moment. 1 out of every 5 people who cast a ballot for Trump is now saying they want nothing to do with the GOP. That is not a rounding error. That is not a temporary dip that can be fixed with a few rallies. That is a structural collapse in the coalition that was supposed to be unbreakable. When you start losing your own base at that scale, you are not just losing an election cycle. You are losing the foundation of your political existence. And the defections are not just happening at the voter level. Local Republican officials, city council members, precinct captains, grassroots volunteers who have spent years knocking on doors and organizing communities, they are quitting. They are walking away from the party they helped build. The word spreading through Republican circles is that the party has become unrecognizable to them, that something fundamental has broken and cannot be repaired. When your own ground troops abandon the battlefield, you have lost more than a fight. You have lost the army. Trump's approval rating is sitting at 36%. That is catastrophic territory for any president, but it is especially devastating for someone who built his entire political identity around the idea that he alone could command the loyalty of the masses. 36% is not a number you recover from. It is a number that makes every Republican senator in a competitive state start calculating their own survival odds. And while all of this is happening, Trump is doing things that accelerate the disaster. He is posting aggressive content about military action in the Strait of Hormuz. He is using language that echoes civil war. He is ranting about enemies and retribution and revenge. He is doing everything that fires up his most hardcore supporters, but in the process, he is terrifying everyone else into running for the exits. Moderate Republicans are fleeing. Swing voters are recoiling. Senators who might have been willing to ride out a normal unpopularity are looking at this chaos and thinking that the man in the Oval Office is no longer just a political problem. He is a stability problem. He is a danger problem. And danger problems require immediate solutions. The Senate is watching all of this unfold, and the collective judgment is brutal. Trump is a liability. He is going to drag the entire party into the abyss during the midterms. Every seat, every committee chairmanship, every ounce of power the GOP has accumulated is at risk if he remains in office. The calculation has shifted from how do we protect him to how do we get rid of him before he destroys us all. Not next year, not after the next election cycle, now. What makes this moment so historically wild is that the same senators who defended Trump through every previous scandal, who shielded him from consequences, who enabled his behavior for years, are now openly declaring their intention to vote against him. Not in private meetings, not through anonymous sources. On the record, out loud. That tells you everything you need to know about where the political winds are blowing. These are people who have made a cold, calculated decision that their chances of surviving the midterms are better without Trump than with him. Let me repeat that because it is the entire story in one sentence. Republican senators have decided that removing their own president is less politically dangerous than keeping him. That is the math. That is the brutal arithmetic that is driving everything. They believe their path to holding power runs through getting rid of Trump and elevating Mike Vance to the presidency. Yes, Mike Vance, the vice president, the man who would take over if conviction happens and Trump is removed. And here is the twist that makes this even more fascinating. Early polling suggests Vance actually performs better with swing voters than Trump does. He is younger. He is less chaotic. He does not carry the same mountain of baggage. He polls higher in purple states. So for senators representing swing districts and competitive territories, removing Trump might not just be a survival move. It might actually be a strategic upgrade. This is the kind of political moment where everything you believed was solid turns out to be quicksand. Trump entered his second term convinced he had total control of the Republican Party. He believed the institution was his. He believed the loyalty was absolute. Instead, he is watching it fracture in real time, and the people driving the fracture are the ones he trusted most. They are Republicans. They are appointees. They are people he campaigned for. The Department of Justice is in chaos. The judicial system is hammering him with fines and contempt charges. And now the Senate is preparing to deliver the final blow. Trump is simultaneously the most powerful person in the country and the most isolated. It is like watching a man stand alone in the center of a room while everyone else quietly moves toward the doors. That is the image you need to hold in your mind as we dive deeper into this story, because understanding how we arrived at this moment is essential to grasping just how unprecedented it truly is. This did not happen overnight. This was not a sudden explosion. This was a slow burn that accelerated into an inferno. When Trump returned to office at the start of the year, he had everything. The party was his, the House was his, the Senate was his, the White House was his. Every lever of power was controlled by people who had bent the knee and pledged their loyalty. It was supposed to be unstoppable. It was supposed to be a victory lap where nothing could touch him. But Trump forgot something essential about how power actually works. Any Senate, no matter how friendly, needs votes. It needs consensus. Even with a majority, even as president, Trump still needed his own party to back him. And that backing only holds as long as the party believes it is in their interest to provide it. The moment that belief collapses, everything else collapses with it. The crackup began when Trump's approval numbers started tanking hard. We are not talking about a normal decline that every president experiences. We are talking about a free fall down to 36%. When your approval is that low, you stop being someone the party rallies around, and you become someone the party runs away from. You become dead weight. In political terms, here is what that means. Republicans in swing states start panicking. They start thinking about their own re-election campaigns. They start running internal polls, and the numbers are devastating. GOP unfavorables are sitting at 60% because Trump is dragging the entire party's reputation down with him. Every candidate attached to him is underwater. Every incumbent who defends him is vulnerable. So senators start having private conversations. They start using phrases like exit strategy. That is the actual language being used behind closed doors. Exit strategy, not defense strategy, not loyalty strategy. Exit strategy. They are asking each other how to distance themselves from Trump without looking like traitors. How to save their own careers while the ship goes down. And then the impeachment happens. The House brings charges, and suddenly Senate Republicans realize they have been handed an off-ramp. They have a mechanism. They can vote to convict. They can remove Trump from office. They can pivot to a Vance presidency that polls better in the districts they need to win. They can tell voters they held him accountable. They can reposition themselves as the adults who finally did the right thing. This is where the calculation becomes ice cold. McConnell signals openness to conviction. Collins says she will vote for it. Murkowski indicates the same. And then the cascade begins. More senators pile on. 12 are now openly committed to conviction. Trump looks at the math and realizes the unthinkable is becoming inevitable. He might actually lose. He might actually get removed. Here is why the math is so terrifying for him. You need 67 votes to convict in the Senate. Republicans control the chamber, so they have the numbers to protect him. They have always had the numbers. But if 12 defect and a few more follow, the shield breaks. Trump is exposed. He is vulnerable. He is going to be removed from office. That reality is sinking in, and it is his worst nightmare. He came back to the White House believing he was untouchable. He believed he could do whatever he wanted and nobody could stop him. Now he is watching his own party line up to take it all away. It is a complete reversal of fortune. So how does Trump respond? Does he try to calm things down? Does he reach out to senators and attempt to rebuild bridges? Of course not. That is not who he is. Trump does the opposite. He doubles down and makes everything worse. He posts things on social media that are inflammatory and chaotic. He talks about the Iran Strait situation in language that is aggressive and threatening. He uses words like civil war. He talks about taking down enemies. He rants about revenge and retribution. Every single time he does this, every post, every outburst, more people abandon the GOP. The working class voters who put him in office keep walking away. Local Republicans keep quitting. Precinct captains keep saying they cannot do this anymore. The party is hemorrhaging from the grassroots up. Senate Republicans watch this and their calculation only hardens. This guy is killing us. He is destroying our chances in the midterms. We need him gone. That is the thought running through every meeting, every phone call, every strategy session. Most people misunderstand what is actually driving this moment. This is not about principles. This is not about conscience. This is not about Senate Republicans suddenly discovering a deep commitment to democracy or the rule of law or the Constitution. This is purely about survival. This is about cold political calculation. Senators in purple states are saying they need Trump gone to have any shot at re-election. Senators in red states are saying their base is abandoning Trump, so they need to show they are willing to stand up to him. It is math. Pure, unforgiving math. And that is actually more dangerous for Trump than if this were about ideology. Principles can waver. Conscience can be compromised. But calculation does not bend. When senators do the arithmetic and conclude that Trump is worth more to them removed than protected, they will act. No negotiation changes that. No promise changes that. The calculation is final. Something else is accelerating this collapse. The Department of Justice is in complete disarray. Bondi is out. There are signals that people like Patel are about to face arrest. The judicial system is hitting Trump with massive fines and contempt rulings. His entire world is crumbling on multiple fronts simultaneously. Senate Republicans look at that and think they need to distance themselves immediately. They cannot afford to be associated with this level of chaos. It is like watching a building engulfed in flames while everyone inside races for the exits because they know what is coming. Now let us understand what triggered this acceleration, because it is not just approval numbers declining over time. It is about what happened when Trump's policies started becoming genuinely frightening. The Iran Strait situation, the military posturing, the language about civil war, the talk about enemies and retribution. This is the stuff that made even loyal Republicans pause and say they were now genuinely scared. Republican senators can handle a president being unpopular. They have weathered that before. What they cannot handle is a president who appears unstable and chaotic, who threatens military action on a whim, who talks about removing his enemies from power as if it is a campaign promise. That is when the conversation shifts from how do we salvage this to how do we get him out of here immediately. The judicial pressure makes everything worse. Trump is facing fines. He is facing contempt charges. The legal system is closing in. Senate Republicans watch this and think about the years of litigation that will follow his presidency. Do they really want to stake their political futures on defending someone who is about to be consumed by court battles? The answer is no. The answer is clear. Remove him. Let Vance take over. Reposition themselves as the responsible ones. Here is something about base erosion that people do not fully appreciate. When you start losing 20% of your own voters, you are not just losing numbers on a spreadsheet. You are losing legitimacy. You are losing the ability to claim you still have a mandate. You are losing the moral authority to demand loyalty from anyone. In electoral politics, margins are everything. A 20% defection rate among your own base is not a wobble. It is not a statistical anomaly. It is a tsunami. It is the kind of number that forces senators to conclude that this man cannot carry them across the finish line. They are better off cutting him loose and trying to rebuild without his baggage. And remember who we are talking about here. Working-class voters. Trump's core demographic. The people who were supposed to be his firewall against exactly this kind of political threat. If you are losing them, you have nothing left. You have no party. You have no movement. You are alone in a room with the doors closing. McConnell and the Senate GOP leadership know all of this. They have internal polls showing the devastation in real time. They are looking at the midterms and seeing a bloodbath if Trump remains in office. Democrats take back the House. Democrats possibly take back the Senate. Every gain Republicans made evaporates. But if they remove Trump before the midterms, if they install Vance, maybe they can salvage something. Maybe they can tell swing voters they held him accountable. Maybe they can convince the country they are still capable of responsible governance. That is the political logic driving every decision right now. And it is why nothing Trump does at this point can change the outcome. No tweet, no rally, no executive order, no speech. The decision has already been made at the leadership level. The Senate is moving toward conviction. The train has left the station, and Trump is just a passenger watching the scenery go by. He has no leverage. He has no power. The math is against him, and it gets worse every single day. Let us break down what this actually means and where things go from here, because understanding the mechanics is crucial to grasping why this moment is so historically significant. The path to acquittal does not exist anymore. It simply does not exist. The Senate math used to be something Trump could control. He had enough votes, the party had his back, but now with 12 senators already signaling conviction and more likely to follow, he is almost certainly going to lose. And when you lose an impeachment trial, when the Senate votes to convict, you get removed from office. You are done. It is over. Think about the weight of that. A president removed by his own party. This has never happened before in American history. It is the nuclear option. It is the thing that was supposedly impossible because it would require the president's own allies to turn on him completely. It would require that level of betrayal, that level of calculated ruthlessness. And it is happening right now. This is not a hypothetical scenario. It is unfolding in real time. The reason it is happening is because the political calculation is so overwhelming that it overrides every other consideration. These are not ideological crusaders on a mission to save democracy. These are politicians who have done the math and realized that Trump is worth more to them politically dead than alive. Conviction is worth more to their careers than loyalty. That is cold. That is brutal. That is politics at its most unforgiving. Mike Vance becomes president. That is the practical outcome. Remove Trump and Vance takes the oath. And the fascinating thing is that this might actually be politically advantageous for the GOP heading into the midterms. Vance polls better than Trump does right now. He lacks the chaos factor. He is younger and cleaner and does not carry the same baggage. For swing state voters exhausted by the constant drama, the military threats, the social media rants, Vance might look like a relief. Senate Republicans are thinking that if they remove Trump and install Vance, they might actually survive. They might hold the House and the Senate. But if they keep defending Trump, they go down together, all of them. Every seat lost, every chamber flipped. They will be blamed for dragging the party into the grave. That is the calculation driving everything, not principle, not conscience, survival instinct. Vance himself is positioned to benefit enormously from this. He becomes the stable alternative. He gets to run as the fresh start. In a strange way, Trump's removal might be the best thing that ever happens to Vance's political future. He becomes president on the back of a GOP revolt. He gets to tell voters he is not Trump. He can actually govern. The GOP base is fracturing, and this is perhaps the most dangerous element for the party's long-term future. You cannot win elections without your base. Right now, 20% of Trump's voters are looking to abandon the Republican Party entirely. 20%. That is a massive chunk of the coalition walking away. These are not random voters. These are working-class Americans who believed Trump was different, that he was an outsider who would fight for them, that he would actually change the system. Now they are watching the chaos, the infighting, the judicial mess, the DOJ disaster, and they are done. They are saying no more. They are abandoning the party entirely. Local Republicans are walking away too. City council members, precinct captains, grassroots organizers who dedicated years of their lives to building the party are quitting. The sentiment spreading through Republican circles is that the party has become unrecognizable, that it has been taken over by something they cannot support anymore. When you lose your grassroots infrastructure, you lose the ability to organize, to turn out votes, to compete in close races. It is a slow death that becomes irreversible. Trump's approval is tanking because of his own behavior. This is the self-inflicted wound that makes everything worse. He posts inflammatory content. He talks about military action in reckless ways. He threatens chaos. He uses language about civil war. That does not make you more popular. It makes you more radioactive. When you are already at 36% approval, that is not a base you can hold. It is a free fall with no bottom in sight. So here is where we land. Trump is politically isolated in a way that is almost unprecedented in modern American history. He is the president. He controls the executive branch, and his own party is preparing to remove him. His base is abandoning him. The courts are hammering him. The DOJ is in chaos. He is surrounded by people who are either incompetent or about to face arrest. There is no mechanism left to stop what is coming. The Senate votes for conviction. Trump gets removed. Vance becomes president. The GOP pivots to saving the midterms without the dead weight of Trump dragging them into defeat. Is it cold? Absolutely. Is it brutal? Without question. Is it something we have never truly seen before in American politics? Yes, but this is the reality we are living in. The Republican Party has decided that Trump is more liability than asset. Once that decision is made at the leadership level, there is no coming back. There is no political maneuver that reverses it. No tweet, no post, no rally, no executive order. The votes are there. The motion is in place. The train is moving and Trump cannot stop it. Think about the speed of this collapse. A few weeks ago, Trump was on top of the world. He was president. He had just taken office. Then Senate Republicans start meeting about how to get rid of him. And now he is on the verge of being removed. That is how fast political calculations shift when the numbers are bad enough. And the numbers are disastrous. 36% approval, 60% GOP unfavorables, 20% of his own voters bailing out. Those are not numbers you recover from. Those are numbers that force action. This is the GOP crackup. This is what happens when a party realizes it backed the wrong horse and tries to course correct by throwing that horse under the bus. It is messy. It is ugly. It is brutal to watch. But it is happening, and we are about to see it play out over the coming weeks as the Senate moves toward a conviction vote that might actually succeed, that might actually remove a president for only the second time in American history. Stay tuned because the next chapter is about what a Vance presidency actually looks like and whether the GOP can save itself in the midterms. This story is far from over. It is just getting started, and you are not going to want to miss what comes next.